All right, well, I want to just kick it off by saying good morning and good afternoon to everyone who was able to make it today. Ability of adaptive and talking about dynamic forecasting. We'll go through introductions on our end. Over to Scott.
Well, thanks, Steve. My name is Scott Wallace. I've been with eCapital about 3 years, but more importantly, I've spent about 40 plus years in this space of helping clients with budgeting, forecasting, reporting, and analytics. It's exciting. It's a space that continues to evolve. We'll talk a little bit about that today. Jeff will be able to show you talk about a little bit about what he's doing, and Husai will be able to show you a little bit about what Adaptive is doing to really change the landscape of technology solutions in this space. I spent the majority of my career at Deloitte Consulting across a number of industries with companies of all sizes. And so I'm excited to talk to you today about what's going on in forecasting and how do you create a dynamic forecasting process. Husai?
Hello, my name is Husai Garwal with eCapital Advisors in a pre-sales role. A little bit of background about myself. I've spent a little over 10 years in different FP&A roles from small, medium to enterprise level companies over about 3 different industries. And I look forward to showing you the solution today.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Belden. I am Director of Finance for Call One, and I am very privileged to be here with you today to talk about our success with Adaptive and eCapital. I'll be talking a little bit about where we were, where we are, and how we got there. A little bit about me. I have about 15 years of experience in finance, corporate finance, obviously graduating with more and more responsibility in the planning and analytics side of things. I primarily spent my career with technology companies and CPG companies of various size, and really where I think this tool has been very helpful is with the small medium business, and that's right where Call One is, and I'm happy to share our story with you today. Back to you, Steve.
Absolutely. So eCapital at a glance, just so people who might not be familiar with who we are and what we do, but we like to look at ourselves as problem solvers. We are a Minneapolis-based working within the Office of Finance, as well as anything data analytics. So being in Minneapolis, we have a really good feel for what things are like in the Midwest, but we also have over 80 consultants within 15 different states. So, and have worked with over 300 customers. I also want to talk about some of the key problems that we help partner with our client. Integrity issues, getting to one source of the truth, limiting if you're having issues with limited manual reporting and analytics issues, and a lot of those answers that are questions asked by leadership within your organization. So our job and our goal is to let you leverage your data to make better business decisions. And where we see our in the Office of Finance, so performance management is really big, whether it's budgeting and planning, financial consolidation, financial reporting, and data warehousing. RPA has been a really new and exciting opportunity for us and that our customers are leveraging, and also on the advisory services side. So whether that's an analytics roadmap, getting some managed services. I wanted to just highlight, obviously we have Jeff from Call One here, but this is just kind of a list to the breadth of the 300 plus customers that we've helped out here in the last few years. And now I'm going to pass it over to Scott to give you guys a little bit more information on forecasting in today's world today.
Steve, for the introduction and talking a little bit about eCapital. We're all excited to be here today with all of you and talk about forecasting. You know, forecasting in today's world is really a continuing challenge for most companies. And whether it's how to improve my forecast accuracy, how to better utilize tools in order to make forecasting more comprehensive around my organization, there's no magic answer. And everybody continues to look for ways to improve not only the accuracy, but the process itself. And so while all of us struggle with that, you don't feel alone. Everybody out there, and even in my days at Deloitte, we were working with Fortune 50 companies all the way down to very small businesses. Everybody struggles with these issues. And so we're here today to talk about a little bit about that and how Adaptive can solve some of those issues for you. When you think about forecasting, everybody is not only dealing with different challenges around it, your companies are at different stages. Everything from an emerging kind of process and forecasting capability, whether there's no formal forecasting process, I don't have any tools, or I have basic tools like Excel, and I'm using that, and that becomes burdensome after my company continues to grow, or I want to get more and more into my forecast. And so you have a lot of companies that are still in that emerging, developing stage, and many more that are in the defined stage. There's a reliance on Excel as the primary forecasting tool of the business. And that brings a lot of issues. It brings, capability issues. It brings consolidation issues. It's hard to maintain one version of the truth. But that's where we find most of our clients. Now, we've seen, because of the advancement in a lot of the cloud technologies, the availability of these tools to companies of all sizes, you're seeing people move to more advanced forecasting processes. And what I mean by that is they're able to do more scenario planning. They're able to do rolling forecasts. They're able to do more continuous forecasting, not waiting for an event like a quarterly forecast or a mid-year forecast, but doing it as things change within the business. And that's what gets us to leading. I have clients that I've worked with that have continuous planning processes because they have the right process and tools in place where they've got their whole supply chain interconnected on a daily basis. They're monitoring the product sources. In this case, it's a produce company. They're looking at the growers. They're seeing what's coming out of the fields. They're monitoring weather conditions. And at the same time, their demand planners are putting in what customers are in need of product and how are they going to get it there, and the in-between of the transportation and hooking it up. Every day, those planners, every day, those folks in sales, operations, transportation, and sourcing are involved in their planning process. So you really have to ask yourself, as you look at your forecasting capabilities today and where you are, where does your company fall? Are you developing or defined? Are you somewhat advanced but still have room to go? Because it's important to kind of set, where am I today and where do I want to end up? We'll talk about that in just a bit. But understand where you fall on the spectrum of forecast capabilities is really important. One of the things that you think about, whether it's planning or forecasting or analytics, is how do I innovate fast enough to keep up with the business environment, how fast things are changing out there, how quickly my competitors are taking market share and doing this. Well, I have to be very innovative. And there was a survey done in late 2019, early 2019, by FSN, which is a financial service network. They surveyed about 2,000 CFOs, and they did it on a broad variety of subjects. But one of the things they really focused in on was, what's your take on innovation? Where are you in the innovation journey from a finance leadership perspective? 85% of the CFOs, so almost the majority, well, over a majority of the CFOs said innovation was one of their number one priorities within their organizations and within their companies. But the same survey, 67% of those same CFOs said, I can't get to innovation because of my legacy systems, my poor processes, and my lack of tools. My people are all tied up. And so you wonder why, when I said I've been in a lot of companies and everybody struggles, it's because they all know where to go. They just are struggling with their current state, and it wraps them around the axle, so to speak, and they can't get out of their own way to innovate and to bring those solutions in. So I thought that was a really telling statistic coming out of that survey. One of the things to remember about forecasting is you make the rules. There is no regulator. There is no anybody looking over your shoulder saying it must be done this way. You need to look at how you want to forecast your business. What what parts of my business have long-term line of sight that I can get fairly accurate 12 months, 18 months out. I might have other parts, some raw materials that I can only tell 3 months out. Then why forecast the same for all elements of your business? Be creative, but do it in a way that you're really looking at the key drivers, the key elements of your business, and what they can see. To ask everyone to see 18 months out is probably not something that everybody can do very well. And so what you end up with when you think of rolling forecasts, you end up with a lot of machine-driven numbers that nobody knows better to override. Nobody knows how to put their own understanding on their on that forecast. So make sure that you're really looking at it from a holistic standpoint, understand the key drivers of your business, and build a process that fits. Like I said, there are no rules. You can make them up as you go, but you want to make it sure that it's inclusive and it makes sense to folks you're asking for the input. And I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and talk about a dynamic forecasting process. And I think a lot of what this section is about has to do with the technology evolution that we've seen in the marketplace. As I said, I've been in this business over 40 years. I have seen everything from 9-column, 11-column paper where I was doing budgets by hand to getting on Lotus Notes, to getting on very rudimentary things, working up to Excel, which we thought was one of the first fundamental paradigm shifts in financial planning and forecasting, and B, moving from Excel into some of these far more advanced solutions. But when you think about dynamic forecasting, I look at it in 3 different buckets. One is to really be dynamic, it's got to be collaborative. I've got to be able to bring in all elements, all functions of my business into the process. And it's got to be easy for everybody to participate. So they need to be able to use solutions that you can get into easily. You can quickly pick it up. It guides you through what you need them to do, because some of your users aren't in there but once a month or once a quarter. And it's important that they understand how to use it to their advantage and how to take advantage of the capabilities. It's got to be comprehensive. It's got to touch everywhere. It's got to be across your business, whether it's from everything from human resources to marketing to supply chain. And of course, the center of that is finance, because at the end of the day, whether you're forecasting shipments, production volume, or raw materials, it's all got a financial impact. And finance, and I grew up in the finance area. That's my background. I've been in that for the 40 plus years. And what I find is that finance is the center of all of that input, because then I can roll it out into a financial result, and that's what people outside my organization are most interested in, or my leadership. And so it's that continuous and comprehensive modeling that takes place. And finally, the last element, it's got to allow for continuous updates. You don't want to wait to the end of a month. You don't want to wait to the end of a quarter to make a new forecast. Too much happens, especially in today's fast-paced environment. Think about the last 6 months. We went from one day, I'll use a personal example. One day we were going to start a new project, literally, and the next day everything was shut down. And it happened to all of us. All of us in this COVID environment went from our companies running as usual to shut down. Well, what do you do in that regard? How do you start to monitor and do new versions and new forecasts? We have clients that were doing it 3 or 4 times a day, because everything would change as different things opened up, as different circumstances evolved. And so it's got to be continuous. And so I think about dynamic forecasting as collaborative, comprehensive, and continuous. And it's got to be, excuse me, I went over one slide. And what does it look like? It means really, I'm looking for weekly or daily updates to the forecast. Again, it's dependent on your data. Your data depends, a lot of times it's only sales data, daily orders that come in that are updated once a day. And that's fine. I want to look at those every day. It could be other elements of your business are good on a weekly basis. Some are good on a monthly basis. Whatever it is, you want to be able to have that process where you can look at it as the actions occur and you're able to see the results. You want all functions included. You want to have as many drivers and calculations in the system driving those forecasts. It's important because if you're depending on manual input, again, as we were talking about, that view out 3 months, maybe not so bad. 6 months, 12 months, now I'm starting to get a little nervous. So if I have to be responsible for inputting the number, I have less confidence the further out it goes. However, if I have a solution where I've got all of my, say, 10 years of history, and I can model off of seasonality, history, other drivers of the business, number of customers, number of new products, whatever the case might be, that's predicting my performance. And my job as a leader is to look at it and make changes based on that, based on what I know that just happened today or yesterday. I can put that in and I can see the impact of that. And then you've got to be able to run scenarios. You got to run scenarios as often as you need to, because that's the key, I think, to effective forecasting. Because it's too difficult if you know a whole lot has changed and the next forecast isn't due for a quarter, which is what it used to be like, once a quarter at the most. That doesn't do us any good to make decisions today. So we start making decisions regardless of the information in front of us. And so this allows you to have that information at your fingertips and be able to better forecast your business. So what are the benefits? I've talked a lot about them. I'm not going to cover this in detail, but you have alignment across your organization. You have timeliness of the information. So if it's something that happened today, I can put the change in, I can see the impact. I might run a new version before I do that because I want to see it compared to what I had in there. But I can quickly see, well, if this happens and this happens, what's the impact on revenue? What's the impact on expense? What's the impact on profitability? It improves accuracy because I'm in it on an almost constant basis for big things that happen. It's collaborative, so everybody's involved. Nobody can say, well, I didn't have a chance to get anything in there, or I wasn't consulted. You have a process and a solution that allows for that cross-functional collaboration. And finally, it allows you to do problem solving ahead of the period results. So if I know something occurs that first week in a month, and I'm pretty clear where it's happening, and everybody's engaged with me, and we come up with some solutions, we start to implement those, I'm now impacting my period performance. I'm not waiting for the performance to come out and go, oh, geez, what happened? The days of looking at variances at the end should be gone. You should be looking at problems today, understanding the impact and taking actions. So how do you make this change? I talk about it like it's something that all of us can do. It can be done easily. And my experience tells me it's not that way. It's hard. Anytime you're trying to change how you do something at your company, change is hard for most people. In order to make an effective change in your forecast process, you have to look at the people, understand their capabilities, their backgrounds. If you're going to bring in, new tools or new process, are they able to adapt to it? What are your plans to help them adapt to it? You have to look at the process. It's not always just a Excel versus a different tool problem. It could be how you forecast your business, who's involved, how frequently are you doing it. So look at the process, and then look at a technology that enables the process you want and enables your people to do it effectively. Technology is an enabler. It's not the answer to fix the forecast and plan problems. It's an enabler for you to get better at those processes. And then finally, data. We can all want to do daily forecasts, daily updates, get daily dashboards. If the data is not updated, it's only as good as the data. It's only as good as the clarity of the data, how clean it is, how often it's updated. So keep that in mind as you're looking at this. And the challenge is if you don't look at it holistically, you're like the guy in the picture playing whack-a-mole. Whatever pops up, you're trying to take care of versus trying to look at the entire landscape of people, process, technology, and data and making it work in unison and as planned. And so it's important that you keep that in mind. And then finally, how do I get started? Define your future state. What does that people, process, technology state look like? What do I want the capabilities my people to have? What are the processes I'm going to use for forecasting? Do they vary by different functions in my company? Who's involved in it? And then what's the solution that I have to enable what I want that future state to look at? If you don't have a leader that's supportive of this kind of change, find one. It used to be you'd go to the CFO because everything to do with forecasts and planning was a responsibility of CFO, which is primarily true today. But if it's a sales leader, because he can't get information, can't see where he's going, or it's the operation leader, that's okay too. Somebody has to champion it and determine what change is required. If you think back on the scale, where is your company today and how far do you want to take it? I think everybody wants to, would love to be that leading edge company, but there's a cost of time and resources to get there. And you have to make that decision. What's a priority? How far can I move up the spectrum and see the kind of change and the kind of positive impact that I want? So you start with the highest priorities, and that helps you set that. And finally, work in phases. Not everything has to happen right now. You will see and hear from Jeff. Implementing adaptive does not take much. You look for those things that give you my return on value as quickly as possible, and I may phase in other parts of the capability over time. So you've got to look at it that way. It's more of a roadmap, and you have a destination in mind, and you're going to get there. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jeff. Jeff's going to talk to you about Call One and their journey.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to share my screen now, so give me 1 second. Okay. Well, good morning again, and thank you for having me on this presentation. Dynamic forecasting and adaptive are two things I'm very excited about because as a finance professional, it definitely makes my life easier, and it also allows me to be that strategic co-pilot with my business partners rather than an Excel data gatherer. First, I do want to say a special thank you to our eCapital team that helped us with the implementation. So Jim and Robert for helping us with the design, and Jamie for keeping us on track and on budget. Just a little bit more about Call One and myself. Call One is a mid-market communication technology company. And I've been with Call One for about 6 months. And what really excited me about joining Call One was this opportunity to bring dynamic forecasting and technology to this company. And as Scott just said, I had full leadership support. My CFO was definitely super excited about the vision that I had planned for Call One. Although I've been with Call One for only 6 months, I've used Adaptive for about 5 years with various companies. And this was the first time that I was able to do a start to finish implementation of Adaptive. So that was very exciting. And yes, Scott is absolutely right. I think from early conversations to live product, it was roughly 7 weeks. So it's very quick, and the team is very engaged. So as I previewed earlier, I'm going to talk about where we were, where we are, and how we got there. So my next slide looks like this. And if you're think about this design from your company, in a static planning world or possibly an Excel planning world, do you tend to have these types of things? Does finance act as the data consolidator of various pieces of information given by the departments? Is finance being relied on to develop a model and with all these various pieces of information? What I found is coming in, we were definitely in the stage of using Excel to plan. And while we had a few output tabs, the majority of the model was this disjointed tabs of data from various departments and various assumptions, and created a very cumbersome, heavy model. What's interesting about Excel is you want to have more data and more information to get the granularity, to get the dynamic approach, but when you've got all these pieces of information that have to be joined together, many times they're not in the same format. You almost have to rely on a simpler output model, which is kind of counterintuitive to what you want to do. You want to be more dynamic. You want to be more detailed, but Excel, it's hard to do it. When you have these models pulled together with all these various tabs, it becomes more difficult to update information or add new information. Now you're worried about, well, if I add a new tab, where do I have to link it in to make sure that it touches all the things it needs to touch? And that brings in a concern about data linkage, data integrity, and probably the worst thing, human error, bad formulas, bad references. And that is one thing that is just devastating when you have Excel-based models. And at the end of the day, what you have is a compromise. You have this big Excel file with all these tabs, and it gets you maybe an answer, but it doesn't quite get you where you want to be. At my previous company, when we were in the process of selling, we developed a model for various buyers, and again, we created it in Excel, and it had to be something that we could distribute out to various buyers. And this was the same situation. We started to try to make it simple, make sure that we had the right drivers, and then we just kept adding and adding and adding, and what turned out to be a simple model became a very big, very cumbersome model. And when we started to say, oh, can we add this? Now it became, okay, how do I add this to all the tabs it needs to add to, and how does it need to be linked up so that we're not missing lines and missing references? This is where I believe this situation kind of fits the define stage that Scott referenced, where we have some process, but we're relying on that Excel to really drive our modeling. So I will say that there is a better state, a future state, and here's where we are. Instead of finance being in the center of all the departments and all the information, adaptive insights is now at the center. And finance has gone from a cat herder to a co-pilot. And now we can help the various departments view their information, view their assumptions through the lens of finance so that we can collaborate and make better assumptions working off of one central source. I say central source because with Adaptive, you can create a version that's hosted and stored on the cloud and saved in real time. You don't have to worry about, version 15 saved out in the file folder, and did the person, John Smith, make the updates he needed to make. You can see live who's made the updates. You can create processes to see did people do their updates, and you're all working off of the most current version all the time. As I said, finance no longer has to take control of being the one to input everything. If you're an adaptive user, you can make inputs to your various input sections, and you can save it and update it as often, and the data is made in real time. There's no more data integrity concerns about did that get updated or what version am I working on. It's all updated in real time. Working with eCapital and kind of having a vision for the model in our case, the model structure and the formulas are built in to meet your needs. So there's no more of adding new tabs or having to link things up. You're able to control and design the model to meet your needs. And that's what's great. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but Adaptive does have a great foundation in which to build your customizations off of. And then finally, with Adaptive, you're leveraging power and speed of cloud computing. All this is done in real time, and you're going to see it in the demo, but creating new versions so that you can do scenario planning. You can create what-if scenarios for comparisons, and you have the ability to develop and design management dashboards and dynamic reports that really help you tell the story about your business. So just this state really focuses on what Scott touched on as the advanced and leading stage, and very much so we've used it in some very specific cases recently. recently we've started strategic planning. And this is a great time to show various scenarios, high, medium, low. What's the impact of certain levels of investment? What's the impact of certain levels of sales? What's the impact of certain new hires or capital purchases? So what is ultimately the impact on profitability of your organization? We designed a dynamic forecasting process for cash flow forecasting. So not only can we do your typical statement of cash flow, but we also have the ability to create weekly cash flows so that we can actually see on a weekly basis, forecast the cash in and cash out, and then be able to compare how the actual previous week realized. And that helps us plan, cash in and cash out needs. As Scott touched on, we do quarterly forecasting. So at the end of each quarter, 6 + 9, 6 + 6, 9 + 3, we lock a forecast. But intra-quarter, we have a live working version. So we're always making updates and changes to information. We're putting in the new actuals. We're adjusting the out months and the out quarters for new information. So we're always having a live point of view of how our business is projecting, all the way into the quarter end forecast, as well as into using those jump-off points to look at things like budgeting for next year or strategic planning. So definitely we've gone from a static Excel-based model to now a really hands-on, collaborative, dynamic process. So how did we get there? Let's take a look at an example of our instance. And this is where working with eCapital really was helpful. I would say during the discovery phase, we spent a disproportionate amount of time talking about that circle area. And that's really about dynamic revenue planning and margin planning. And so we focused on how do the various pieces that touch revenue need to plan. So obviously our sales team, what's in their pipeline? So what do we need to show them, or what do we need to give them to plan their pipeline of future sales? In our business, there is a delay between a contract signing and a customer going live generating revenue. So how do we plan for that period? So that sold deals backlog. What is most desirable for the team that focuses on the implementations of those deals sold? And then finally on revenue, we obviously have a book of business. So how do we plan for price changes or revenue or service changes, and how does that impact the existing run rate base? And then finally, that final lower left part of the pie, dynamic margin planning. Each of our services has different profitability, and we are clearly working on various things to improve profitability from a cost structure. So how do we plan those dynamic changes in margin or cost? That really is a very cohesive and collaborative planning session that touches sales, it touches customer implementation, it touches account management, it touches our groups that manage our cost relationships. So on top of that, you layer on what I'm going to say the easier stuff, human capital planning and OpEx planning at your department levels, so you're collaborating and co-piloting with your department leads. You're also working with your departments on capital needs, capital expenditures, and you're able to create depreciation planning, depreciation schedules. Once you finish your income statement, you can switch over and start planning a balance sheet. You can look at working capital needs and metrics that you track on efficiency there. And as I touched on, with cash flow modeling, you can have a standard cash flow statement as well as do something like we've done, which is a weekly view. And all that, once you have all that data, all that continuous planning done, you can lock it or keep it open, but you've got two great methods to see the data, to see the outputs. Dynamic reporting, you can create income statements, balance sheet, anything with comparisons, as well as quick and easy insightful dashboards. So think about this. If you've got maybe two revenue streams, one that's a new revenue stream, one that's a legacy, and you want to see where they cross over time, that is a great use of a dashboard. So we've been able to leverage a cohesive, comprehensive model that enables us to have a continuous and complete forecast process and go from a static Excel, very difficult, very cumbersome process to a fluid and collaborative process, all in the cloud, all real time, and with the ability to create many what-if scenarios and answer management questions with ease. So as I've talked about the benefits of Adaptive and how we've used it and how our model kind of looks, I think it's time that we see a demo, and we're going to see all these things I talked about in action. So I'm going to pass it over to Husai, who's going to take you through version creation, dynamic forecasting, and some of those outputs of dashboards and reporting. So, I've told you about it, now you're going to see it. So take it away, Husai.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. We will start our demo in dashboards, look at some different visuals, high-level financials, show you the drillability and Cell Explorer functionality within Adaptive. Then we will go ahead and create a new forecast version, make some changes to the forecast data for you to see dynamic forecasting. And last, we will go into reporting. So with that, I will take over the share and the control.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. So here we are looking at the home page of Adaptive Planning. It is a modern cloud-based application which can be accessed from anywhere on the web, from a PC, your iPad, or even your mobile device. This homepage is fully customizable to what you would like to see when you first log in here. It could be a link to your intranet site. It could be any company announcements such as budget is due this Friday, or even if your company picnic is being rescheduled, you can share that with your team here. On the top right-hand corner here, we are logged in as Director of FP&A Patrick O'Brien for today's demo. Then via this question mark, you can access the Adaptive Planning Knowledge Center. This is your Google search with your guided click options within Adaptive. Then on our left-hand side, under our Workday icon, you can access the navigation menu within Adaptive. A quick rundown of what is all available. Home is where we were just at on the home page. Then we have Sheets. Sheets, you can think of this as your modeling you currently may be doing in Excel in different tabs that Jeff was referring to. So if you have a workbook or model that has 20 plus tabs, you can think of Sheets as your individual modeling that you're doing for revenue, expense, or workforce, or capital, T&E, and so on. Then we have assumptions. You can hold global assumptions here. They could be specifically to your sales drivers, workforce drivers, or any expense drivers. Then we have reports, dashboards, announcements, a consolidation tool within the platform. Processes, I like to think of processes as a TurboTax for finance, where you can be a workflow as an admin user, assign a step-by-step process to your end users to come into this platform, follow an X number of steps to update, adjust their forecast or budget, and then submit to the next level of approver. Workflow is where you can assign those tasks to your end users. Then we have formulas, modeling, administration, and integration. These last three. This is kind of the backdoor to the structure of this platform. Then last but not least, we have support, where you can submit a ticket to Adaptive Planning. So with that, let's jump into dashboards. So I've just navigated over to dashboards from the navigation menu. Basically, dashboards gives users the secured access to visual analysis and data entry. You can view your latest financial results here in a variety of layouts, such as a traditional line column charts, donut charts, gauges, different metrics that you can build out here, scorecards, waterfalls, just to give you a taste going through some of these gray tabs here. These dashboards are fully customizable and interactive. We call these individual dashboards perspectives within your company summary. By security, we can assign these to different user groups. So maybe we have a sales group or a production group or a distribution group. we can customize and build different tabs within your company summary, different perspectives for your individual users or groups here. Then in the top blue ribbon here, we have our dimensions. For this demo here, we have time, level, and currency. Within adaptive planning, you can have an unlimited number of dimensions. And there's no need for IT. This is a fully finance-driven solution. During implementation and training, we will enable you to be able to come into this platform at any point in time to adjust your dimensions, add any new dimensions that you may need. So looking at this dimension here for a level, total company, also important to point out here, this is your first place of security where we can by level assign security to your users depending on what level they have access to. Level could also be your cost centers, your profit centers, however you organize your hierarchy of your business today, we can do that. So just navigating down to United States, Sales North, simply selecting Sales North, since I am Patrick O'Brien, an admin user, I can see all the levels and all my tabs now across all these different perspectives have dynamically updated to just represent data for Sales North. So hopping back up to total company, going over to our summary tab, let's take a look at the net product revenue metric or KPI here of $8.3 million. Now, $8.3 million directly from this metric doesn't tell me a whole lot. And let's assume we have a meeting and I have 5 minutes to prepare for it and I would like to understand a little bit more color around it. So these self-service dashboards, you can come in here, anyone, your executives, your analysts, anyone can come in here, click in these dashboards, and that will allow you to get to your dimensions. Again, these dimensions are fully customizable. What it means is we would be building this for using your data in your business and creating them with the dimensions for you. So here, let's take a look and see which products are the most purchased products of the $8.3 million. So just by drilling down now, we can see that product A1 is the most purchased product of our 8.3, followed by all these other products here. So it looks like it's 1.4. Let's further ask some more questions and understand which customers are driving the most of product A1. Looks like customer 5 is purchasing the most of product A1 at about $323,000. We can further keep asking questions depending on how many dimensions we build for you and customize this, or we can go into the super powerful functionality of Explore Data. This Explore Data takes us to this Cell Explorer functionality, which allows us to really understand this data point of how it is built. So on our left-hand side here, we can see that it's a net revenue. We can see our dimensions. We can see our contributing levels. Looks like this is all within company A. We can also see the formula that is being used to calculate the data point, as well as the sheet that it is planned on. So simply clicking on the sheet product revenue here, this is now going to take me into the sheet of where that data point is planned on. So super powerful, as in you can come into the dashboard at the top level metric, start drilling down, asking some questions, and really understand how that net revenue data point of 323,000 is built up. So going back up to our dashboards, I personally like this a lot too. I have spent many years in FP&A in Excel workbooks that are 20, 30 tabs long, and you start following some links and follow your sum if formulas. This is nice from a visual perspective. You can just scroll up and see, okay, where did I start drilling down, and understand how we followed it through to build that story that you need to tell for those meetings. So let's go back up to our front. Not only can you drill into these dashboards and interact with them, but on our right-hand side here, you can also take this into presentation mode. So no need to copy and paste these beautiful charts and graphs into PowerPoint from your Excel and then print your PowerPoint decks and have them ready to go. You can directly take this into your 3 o'clock meeting. You can have users be in this platform up to 2:58 p.m., making any changes they need to be changed in doing a simple refresh, taking it into presentation mode, and you have all your perspectives within the company summary ready to go in presentation mode for your meeting. We're also able to create snapshots on these. So assuming you want to have a specific perspective, be it your sales users group, if you want them to have an X number of dashboards every Monday morning at 8 a.m. in their inbox, we can schedule those snapshots on a specific frequency, time and date, and send that out automatically. So when they come into the office, they have their dashboards ready to go. So now let's move over, according to our agenda, into version creation. So via the modeling from the navigation menu, I have moved over to version creation. I will create a new version and then make some changes. So let's do a working forecast. For our demo model here, I have 4 months of actuals and 8 months of forecast, and we'll call this version 2. Then within our access control, if you're ever working in a highly confidential version, you can hide it. You can adjust the access for administrators or your end users. We can also change the left scroll limit in your end of your new version. And then important to point out here, in the new version, we are taking a copy of our working forecast. And then a simple save will copy everything over from our working forecast. Just logged me out, so just a quick log back in. This is logging me back in here. It is, do that quickly one more time. It didn't take it. And we will copy from our working forecast. So this is now going in and copying everything over from our working forecast. Any assumptions, formulas, reports, anything pre-built that we have done and worked on in our working forecast is now going to get copied over into our 4+8 and is now ready to go for us to go in and make some changes. Navigating over into reports, before I make any modeling changes, and of course this is logged out as well. This is one of my favorite reports, the What If Financial Statement report. And I will show you the two versions that we have that we're comparing to, and with their variance columns. So this is via reports, our What If Financial Statement report. Here we're looking at our 2019 actuals, a budget past one, a working budget, and I will adjust this to the new forecast that we have just created and prove out to you that there are no changes in our variance column. And then we'll go in and quickly make a few simple changes, come back here and refresh. So we can see in our variance column, everything is 0. Now I've navigated over to a product revenue detailed modeling sheet where I'm going to make some changes. Let's swap to our new version that we have just created, and we are on level sales north. Again, this could be any of your cost centers, profit centers, however we would organize this for you. And I'm looking at units. So just a quick rundown here on this product revenue sheet that I'm looking at. This is just an example for this demo today. We have sales detail calculating down to our net revenue. We have COGS. We have variable cost calculating down to our gross profit margins. We have our dimensions on our left-hand side. Again, we would customize these for you. We're looking at product A1 for sales north. And looking at the units here, we can assume that maybe starting with September, our units volume is going to pick up. So I can simply come in here, that being a white cell, I can make the change directly here in this new forecast version, and I can copy it forward to the end, assuming we are going to stay at about 250 a month. Now my total is at about 2,301. And you know what? I think this is going to be closer to 2,500. And instead of doing the calculations by month backwards, it allows us to break it back proportionately using prior year's value evenly on a weighted basis or an assumption that we can build. If you have a seasonality in your business, we can build that as an assumption and use that to break it back. But let's just do it proportionately. So this has now just changed all the months and is adding to 2,500 here for the full year. Our changes are in blue. Simply, blue means we just made the change, but not submitted to the system. So we will save our units volume change. And then next, let's take a look at price. Price on the sheet here is in a gray cell. That means that this is driven from an assumption sheet, which we can see in here as well. So in order to make a change to price, we have to use our assumption sheet to drive the change here. So I'm just navigating over to our sales drivers assumption sheet. Going to our sales north. And we are in our forecast 4+8 version. And here's my $96 for product A1. Let's just adjust this all the way through the end of December by an increase of 20%. Now again, it's blue, so we will just save the change. Navigating back over to our product revenue sheet, just a simple refresh will update our price point here from $96 to $115.20. So on the sheet here with the 4+8, we can see our actuals in green and we can see our forecast data in black. So now we've just made the change for price in units. Next, I'd like to show you the P&L, how this net revenue that's being calculated on this product revenue sheet gets pushed into the P&L. So navigating over to the P&L, it's not liking my password. Oh, okay, went in there. So going back to that P&L sheet, picking the version that we're working in. So now I've navigated over to our P&L. This is just a very, very traditional report with our columns on top. We can have quarters. We can have adjust the view here. We have our accounts on our left-hand side with revenue, COGS, contribution margins, walking us all the way down to net revenue. So just adjusting and adding our fan favorite, spark lines. And we are coming up on time here soon, so I will try to wrap it up here in just a few minutes. Using these spark lines, it's super powerful to have, especially for your visual users. We have our accounts on our left-hand side. We have our beautiful spark lines. If we look at maybe office supplies, so simply clicking in the office supplies, it allows us to use these spark lines and make adjustments. So we can just simply drag and drop functionality to make the changes, and we can see them here in blue in our data points. Let's just click out of it, Xing, and save our changes. So now we've made some changes for units, price, and some office expense changes. And coming back to our What If financial statement report, refreshing it. It likes to lock me out today. And then coming back to this report, adjusting our versions, looking at our forecast, working forecast, and our 4+8 and a refresh, we will see some variances here on our revenue, our COGS, because we changed our units, walking all the way down to net income, and we can see the changes trickle through our balance sheet, our cash flow, and adjusting changes to our financial metrics. So with that, I will hand it over. I know we are 1 minute over. There's a lot more to show on reports, but we are at the end of our hour. So I will hand it over back to Scott to wrap us up.
Yeah, thank you, Husai. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for your attendance today and getting on and listening to this. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us via the website, and we'll be able to get back with you with any answers to your questions or anything else that you want to know about Adaptive or eCapital. So thank you very much for attending today, and we'll talk to you later.